So this is the first question from one of the students in the chat room. They posted for us. Write an equation of the line that is, I'm sorry, write the equation of the line contains a given point 3, 3, 3, and minus 3, and is parallel to this line. Okay, so for writing the equation of the line, every time somebody asks you write the equation of the line, what you can do is write y is equal to mx plus b, mx plus b. There are two equations actually we can write, but this would be the one that requires you to do less work. Anybody who are following this live with me, anybody remember the other formula for equation of the line? This is called a slope intercept form, because we know m is a slope, b is the intercept. Anybody else can give me another formula for equation of the line?
Yes, it's Latoya. It's a point slope form.
Very good. The other one is point slope. That would be y minus y1 is equal to m times x minus x1. This is called point slope, because I know the point, one point p1, x1 and y1, and then I know the slope again. The slope is m. So if you, but in this case, b is my y-intercept. B is the y-intercept. Now, when we talk about y-intercept is a point, right? Is a point that your line is going to pass us through y-axis at some point. So that is means x is equal to 0 and y is b, that number. So that's actually the point, 0 comma b. Okay. All right. So I really want you to consider using this formula as opposed to this formula. Again, it requires less work if you do that. So, and you'll see why. Okay. So in this case, in order to write the equation of the line, you want to ask yourself two things. You want to ask yourself, do I know the slope? Do I know one point? If I know those two pieces of information, I can write the equation of the line. Because if I, in this case, I know a point is given to me as 3 and minus 3. So my line's gonna, you don't have to really graph this, but I'm just to, for the sake of understanding this problem a little bit better, I'm gonna locate that point on the x and y axis. Again, you don't really have to graph anything in order to write the equation of the line. So if I locate this point, 3, 1, 2, 3, and then 1, 2, 3. So my line is going to pass us through this point here, 3 and minus 3. And then it says is parallel to this line. So I don't know the slope. However, somebody is giving me a reference line. Okay, the reference line. I don't really have to graph this, but if I did graph this reference line, 4x minus 9y is equal to 2. If I pick a couple of points, if x is equal to 0, as you can see, y would be equal to 2 over minus 9. Everybody with me? Everybody agree with that? If x is equal to 0, divide both sides by minus 9, y would be equal to 2 over minus 9. You can approximate that point here. So 2 divided by 9, that gives you about 0.2, right? So it would be about minus 0.2 repeats itself. Okay, so about minus 0.2. And now if y is equal to 0, can somebody tell me what x is equal to? If y is equal to 0, here you go. If y is equal to 0, this term is going to be gone, right? 4x equal to 2. How do you solve for x? You divide both sides by 4, right? So x equal to 2 over 4, right? Read with me, 2 over 4. What is 2 over 4? 1/2, right? 2 over 4. So 2 divided by 4, that's equal to 0.5. So if I locate that reference line, if y is equal to 0, x equal to 0.5, so this is 1, 0.5 would be somewhere around here. My reference line is going to pass us through this point. And if x equal to 0, y is equal to minus 0.2, so it's very close to 0 actually at the bottom here. That would be this point here. So my reference line is somewhere around like that, okay? That would be my reference line, okay? So the equation of this line is given to me as 4x minus 9y is equal to 2. Again, I don't really have to graph any of these, but what would be the slope of this reference line? That's something that you have to calculate. What would be the best way to find the slope of this equation, this reference line, when the equation is given to me? Anyone? Solve for y. Very good. Somebody says solve for y. Exactly. You solve for y, that the coefficient of x would be your slope. So let's do that. Let's go ahead and solve this for y. I'm going to go minus 9, but if I subtract 4x from both sides of the equation, I get this. So if I go ahead and divide both sides by 9, negative 9, plus 2 over negative 9. So what is the slope? Y is equal to 4 over 9y minus 2 over 9. So the slope of my reference line, the slope of this line here, is equal to 4 over 9, right? So because it says these two lines are parallel, the slope of the line that I'm looking for would be parallel to that and passing through this point here. So it would be somewhere around here. This is the line that I want to write its equation, actually. It would be the line that would be parallel to that line, but also passes through this point here. Okay. So if I can grab that line and move it a little bit higher, I can see that's the line. That's the red one is equation of the line that they're asking me to find. Okay, because they're parallel, the slope of that line also will be exactly the same as 4 over 9 as the slope of my reference line. Okay, so I know my slope now. Do I know B? Do I know y-intercept? No, it's not given to me, but I know a point. I know my line's gonna pass us through this point 3 and minus 3. So what we're gonna do now is substitute this information into this equation, or you could actually substitute this equation. Again, I really like this one because it's a lot easier to use. Because if I let y, if I treat this as point P, this would be x, this would be y. If I go ahead and substitute for each y negative 3, and substitute for each, let me move that. Okay, so if I substitute for each y negative 3 and for each m 4 over 9 and for each x 3 over 1, I can solve for b. But once I solve for b, I'm done. I can write the equation of the line. Okay, how do you solve for b? I can reduce this. This becomes 1. This becomes 3. So here I get negative 3 over 1 equal to, that would be 4 over 3 when I reduce it, plus b. So if I subtract 4 over 3 from both sides of the equation, that would be my b. The LCD here is 3, so I have to multiply it by 3 over 3. So it would be minus 4 minus 9 over 3. So b is equal to minus 4 minus 9 would be minus 13 over 3. That is the y-intercept. So this point is minus 13 over 3. Okay, so I'm done. I can write the equation of this red line. I can change the color to show that's the equation of the line that I'm looking for. So let's see. That would be y. The equation of this line would be y is equal to, my m is 4 over 9, 4 over 9x, plus my y-intercept I just found is equal to minus 13 over 3. Minus 13 over 3. So this is the equation of this line. So the equation line that passes through that reference line is equal to y is equal to 4 over 9x minus 13 over 3. Okay, so this is another example that you need to know for the final exam. Here we have write an equation of the line contains the given point. So I know a point, -5 and -2, but I don't know the slope. I need to know also the slope in order to write the equation of the line. However, I know a reference line. It says my line is perpendicular to this line. If I find the slope of the perpendicular line, then I would know the slope of my line, because if two lines are perpendicular, the slope would be negative and reciprocal of each other. Okay, in order to find the slope of the perpendicular or reference line, you have to solve for y. Let's do that. You solve for y, the coefficient of x would be your slope. In order to solve for y, I'm going to add 5x to both sides of the equation, and then divide each term by -2. Then y would be then equal to -5/2x minus 27/2. So the slope of my reference line is -5/2. If two lines are perpendicular, the slope would be negative and reciprocal of each other. So if I have two lines are perpendicular, if the slope of the first line is, let's say, a/b, if the slope of first line is a/b, the slope of the other line would be negative and reciprocal of that would be -b/a. You need to know this fact. Okay, so if the slope of this line is -5/2, the slope of my line would be negative and reciprocal of that would be +2/5. Okay, and these are all the informations I need in order to write the equation of the line. Okay, so we can substitute those information into y is equal to mx plus b formula or point slope formula. I suggest you use y is equal to mx plus b. That's the easiest one to use. My slope is 2/5. It's right here. I'm going to treat this point as point P. So my x would be -5, -5/1, and my y would be -2/1 plus b. Okay, so it looks like that this 5 and -5 would reduces. So you get 2 times -1 would be -2 plus b is equal to -2. So if I add 2 to both sides of the equation, so what is b is equal to? Looks like b is equal to -4. Okay, once I know b, once I know the slope, I'm done. The equation of the line then would be y is equal to m is 2/5x plus b is -4, so it would be -4. So this is the equation of the line that passes through this point and is perpendicular to this reference line.
Wait, why?
So it looks like that we added here, my pen is not working very good. That would be +2. Thank you so much. So the -2 +2, so the b is not -4. What does that be then? 0, right? B would be equal to 0. So let's fix that. That makes a difference. B would be equal to 0, right? So the equation of the line would be y is equal to just 2/5x. There's no +0. You can just don't mention anything there. So that's the equation of the line. Now you notice that the slope is negative and reciprocal of each other, right? So they are perpendicular. Yeah, you're definitely right. The y-intercept is 0 in this case because we're adding 2 to both sides. Very good. Okay, so this is the mixture problem. When you deal with the mixture problem, it's a good idea to use these figures here. Here it says the chemistry lab assistant wants to prepare 10 liters of 48% acid solution. So this is what we want ultimately. This would be 10 liters. I'm going to label this 48%. And here it says what we have on hand is a bottle labeled 80% and the one labeled 40%. So if I assume that I'm using X liter of 80%, the rest should go to how much I'm going to use for 40%. That would be 10 minus X. Now what 80% means? 80% means 80 divided by 100, which would be 0.8. 40% would be 40 divided by 100 would be 0.4. 48% would be 48 divided by 100 would be 0.48. Okay, so it means amount times the strength. It would be 0.8x plus 0.4 times 10 minus x is equal to 0.48 times 10. Okay, you can go ahead and multiply these numbers here. 0.48 times 10 give me 4.8. Now you could multiply each term by a factor of 10 to eliminate the decimal, if you don't want to deal with decimal. Why I'm multiplying by a factor of 10? Because it looks like there's one digit after each of these decimal points. If I multiply each term by 10, then 10 times 0.8 would be just 8x, plus this would be 10 times 0.4 would be 4, 4 times 10 minus x, and here 10 times 4.8 would be 48. So here's the same equation with no decimal. If I go ahead and distribute this, I get 8x plus 40 minus 4x is equal to 48. To solve for x, 8x minus 4x, that gives me 4x. If I go ahead and subtract 40 from both sides of the equation, then I get 4x is equal to 48 minus 40, will give me 8, divide both sides by 4. So what is x? X equal to 2. Now you need to have a unit for this. This will be 2 liters. So if x is equal to 2 liters, x equal to 2 liters, how much we're going to use for the 40%? 10 minus 4, right? 10 minus 2. 10 minus 2, which is equal to what? 8 liters. So it means I have to use 2 liters of 80% solution, and I have to use 8 liters of 40% solution. So the question now is, can I switch this around? Can I assume that I have X liter of 40% and the rest goes to 80%, which becomes 10 minus X? Yes, you can do that. But if you set that up the other way around, then you would get 80% times 10 minus X plus 40% times X. When you solve that equation at the end, you don't get 2 for X, you would get 8 for X. You can actually try it. You would get X equal to 8. That means the X that you assume that would be for the 40% strength is the one that you find first. And then you would find the other one to be, 2 liters. So at the end, doesn't matter which one you call X, which one you call 10 minus X, you should come up with the same results. You would get 2 liters of 80% strength has to be added to 8 liters of 40% strength in order to get 10 liters of 48% strength. Okay, so this is another mixture problem that you could see on the final exam. Here it says a merchant has coffee worth $3 a pound. So I'm going to label this box $3 a pound. And it wishes to mix that with another that worth $7 a pound, and at the end you want to get a mixture 2 worth $6 a pound. So this, just like the mixture problem we did before, we can go ahead and illustrate this with these boxes. So the first one is $3 a pound. I'm going to put $3 here. That shows that how much this coffee would be worth per pound. The second one, you want to put $7 a pound. And you want to, when you mix this, you want to sell it for $6 a pound. So you notice that I am labeling these all dollars. I'm not going to mix it. What I also know is that the coffee that's worth $7 a pound, I know the amount of that. How much is that? 90 pounds. 90 pounds I know I have. So that's a good piece of information for me so I can figure out the rest. So I'm going to assume that I'm going to use X pound for the coffee that's worth $3 a pound. We can do that, right? X. Because I don't know how much I'm going to use here. So if I use X pound here, added to 90 pounds, what would be my total mixture would be equal to? 90 plus X, right? Or X plus 90, right? That has to be 90 plus X. Okay, I'm ready to write the equation now. All right, now we are done with half of the problem already. So amount times the strength, or in this case, amount times how much each pound worth. So it would be 3 times X plus 7 times 90 must be equal to 6 times 90 plus X. This is my equation. So let's go ahead and solve this. 3X plus 7 times 90 give me 630. I'm going to distribute this. 6 times 90 give me 540 plus 6 times X would be 6X. I'm going to subtract 3X from both sides of the equation, so the 3X goes to the right. And then I'm going to go ahead and subtract 540 from both sides of the equation, so 540 go to the left. 630 minus 540, they give me 90. 6X minus 3X give me 3X. Divide both sides by 3. That would be X. X would be equal to 90 over 3, which is equal to 30. Now you have to have a unit for that. X was the amount of number of pounds that we're using for $3 coffee. So here would be, we need to use 30 pounds. 30 pounds. When you add it to 90 pounds that worth $7 in order to get the total of $6 worth of the coffee. So the question is, how many pounds of $3 coffee? That's what we assumed X would be equal to, and that's what we solved for. So we're done. The question, we answered the question. This is, we need 30 pounds of the coffee worth $3, and we're done. That's the final answer. Okay, here we want to solve the inequality involving absolute value. And this is not a regular inequality, so I can isolate the X. What I need to do is translate this to inequality without absolute value first. So let's go back to see what that means when I say absolute value of X is greater or equal to 1. Okay, absolute value of X is greater or equal to 1 means all the numbers that are exactly 1 units away from 0 if this were equal to 1, but greater than 1 would be all the numbers that are larger than 1 units away from 0. So if I say absolute value of X is equal to 1 means give me all the numbers that are exactly 1 unit away from 0. So the solution would be plus 1 minus 1. Okay, you probably heard absolute value of X is equal to K. The solution would be plus K minus K. Now, if it's greater than 1, would be all the numbers that are larger than 1 unit away from 0. So looking at these numbers, number line, what are the numbers that are larger than 1 unit away from 0? Wouldn't be all the numbers to the right of 1 would be larger than 1 unit away from 0? And all the numbers to the left of -1, if I take tape measure, I see these numbers here. Any points to the left of -1 and right of 1, if I measured from 0, would be larger than 1 unit from 1. Okay? Now, similarly, if I say absolute value of X is less than 1, that means all the number in between -1 and 1 means all the numbers are less than 1 unit away from 0. So you really need to understand this translation in order to do the problem involving absolute value in inequality. So absolute value of X greater than 1 refer to two regions. X is greater or equal to 1, or X is less than or equal to -1. Okay? Now, once I understand that, then that's all I have to do is just instead of x, I'm just going to put 2x minus 2 in these two regions. So instead of x, I would say 2x minus 2 must be greater or equal to 1, or 2x minus 2 must be less than or equal to minus 1. So this would be my translation going from absolute value in inequality to just inequality. Now I can go ahead and isolate x and get my answer. So the first step is to do that translation there. Okay, now if I go ahead and add 2 to both sides of the inequality, then I would get 2x greater or equal to 3. So divide both sides by 2. So that would be one region. So the other region would be if I add 2 to both sides of the inequality, that give me 2x is less than or equal to 1, plus 2 minus 1 would be 1. Divide both sides by 2. So x would be less than or equal to 1/2. Okay, so if I were going to graph this, my graph would look like this now. Locate 3 over 2. 3 over 2 would be somewhere around here. All the number greater than that would be to the right of that. And then 1/2 would be right here, around here. Less than that would be. So the shape of regions would be very similar to absolute value of x is greater than 1. As you can see, kind of a similarity there, except we're just shifting these points here a little bit. So this is 1/2. So if I want to write this in interval notation, you would write, because it's included the endpoints, you have to use brackets here or fill out this whole. So interval notation would be brackets 3 over 2 comma infinity, union means or, then brackets negative infinity to 1/2. So this would be the interval notation. So that would be the solution. Now you could check your answer easily. Pick a point which is not in the region that you claim is a solution, like 0. That's an easier point to check. If I substitute for each x 0, it shouldn't make sense. Right? Let's do that. 2 times 0 is 0. 0 minus 2 would be negative 2. Absolute value of negative 2 is equal to 2. Is it true that that would be 0 minus 2 would be 2? Something is not right. We have 2x minus 2 is greater than 1. 2x minus 2 is less than or equal to minus 1. Okay. Okay, so it looks like there's a little error on the graph here, because 1/2 is right between 0 and 1, not between 0 and this point here. So let's fix that graph here. So I'm going to draw this graph over. I'm going to delete this. Okay, so this is my new graph. So let's do that right. This is 0. Okay, let's locate 3 over 2. What is 3 over 2 is equal to? 1.5. Okay, so this would be 1. This would be 2. 1.5 would be somewhere around here. Okay, so I looked at this minus and throw me off. In this case, we got x is less than or equal to 1/2. So 1/2 would be where? Between 0 and 1. That's 1/2, right? So all the number greater than 3/2, this is 3/2. All the number greater than 3/2 would be to right of 3/2, which is right here. All the number less than 1/2, this would be 1/2. That would be all the numbers to less than 1/2 would be here. So now it should make sense. That would be a good check, because when I checked 0 earlier, it did check out. And and that wasn't showing on my graph here. So this is 1/2. So all the number to the right of 3/2 to infinity, and all the number from 1/2 and negative infinity. The solution is correct. Interval notation is correct, except the graph wasn't correct. To 1/2. Now let's test if the 0 checks out. If I put 0, which we claim that is a solution, into this inequality, should make sense. 2 times 0 is 0. 0 minus 2 is -2. Absolute value of -2 is 2. 2 is greater than 2. Yes, it makes sense. Earlier we checked 0. It didn't look like in my graph, and I did check out, so it means I did something goofy, and that was it. If I pick 1, you think 1 would work? No, because we're not claiming 1 as a solution. Let's try 1. 2 times 1 would be 2. 2 minus 2 would be 0. Absolute value of 0 is 0. Is 0 is greater than 1? No, that's good, because we are not claiming 1 as a solution. So you can easily check your answer after you claim your solutions, and you can see whether this is true. All right, so that was the one that example that like absolute value of something is greater or equal to 1. What I like to do now is switch this around. Instead of writing absolute value of 2x minus 2 is greater than 1, I'm going to switch it, make it less than 1. Just get more practice on this one. So still going to say solve inequality, okay? But I'm going to change this slightly to different inequality. I just want to make it less than instead of greater than. So if I say absolute value of 2x minus 2 is, instead of less than, okay, before it was greater than, now I'm going to say is less than. Okay, how would that affect everything? So I have to go back to the basic. If absolute value of x is less than or equal to 1, what that means is all the number that are less than 1 unit away from 0. All the number less than 1 unit away from 0 would be all the number between -1 and 1 instead, right? Including -1 and 1. Okay, so that would be my solution. All the number between -1 and 1. You see how I'm translating absolute value inequality into just inequality without absolute value. So if we do the same thing, instead of x, I'm going to put 2x minus 2 then must be between 1 and -1, right? So what do we do next? We add 2 to both sides of the inequality. So I get 2x must be in between. That would be 3, and that would be 1. As long as you're not dividing by a negative, the direction of inequality stays the same. So if I go ahead and divide each term by 2, so then x must be in between 3 over 2 and 1/2. So if I look at the number line, if this is 0, and if this is 1, and if this is 2, so that would be 1.5. This would be 3 over 2. 1/2 would be right here. So all the number in between these 2 points, including these 2 points, would be the solution. If I want to write an interval notation for that, would be all the numbers between 1/2 and 3/2 would be the solution. Right? So we are not claiming 0 is a solution, right? So let's test 0. If I put 0 here, 2 times 0 is 0. 0 minus 2 is -2. Absolute value of -2 is 2. Is 2 is less than 1? No, 2 is greater than 1. So that's good because we are not claiming 0 as a solution. But if you pick any points between 1/2 and 3/2, it should be less than 1.